Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the channel and our little read-through of the newest edition of Unearthed Arcana, Subclasses Part 2 for 2020. If you missed it, we went over the College of Creation for the Bard yesterday. Be sure to check that one out. And today, as promised, we will be going over the Unity domain for the Cleric. Once again, we will be focused on the more tactical, rulesy stuff for combat with these subclasses. Not really going to be focused on the flavor or the fantasy as much. And without any further ado, let's just get on into it. Starting off, we have the domain spells, the expanded spell list for the Unity domain. And I'm going to be honest with you, these aren't the best crop of spells that I've seen. Starting off at first level, we have Heroism and Shield of Faith. Heroism isn't a great spell, not really all that useful, just gives you some temp HP. Shield of Faith, bonus action, concentration, AC +2. Decent spell, pretty good early game. As you go on in levels, it does get a bit weaker, I think. But always having that prepared and ready could come in handy. At third level, we have Aid and Warding Bond. Two not so good spells. I don't really like either of these spells. Having them always prepared is fine, I guess. But I can't imagine too many scenarios where you would be using these and using your precious spell slots on these, and it actually being super worth it. At 5th level, we have Beacon of Hope and Sending. Beacon of Hope has its uses. These uses aren't common, but always having that prepared for when the situation does arise is useful. Sending is a very interesting spell for long-range communication. The word limit can sometimes trip people up, though, as I'm sure many of you know. At 7th level, we have Aura of Purity and Guardian of Faith. I like Aura of Purity as just a always prepared spell. The situations where it is useful don't arise too often, but when they do crop up, Aura of Purity is very useful and almost necessary, in my opinion. Guardian of Faith is a very weird spell. I'm not really sure how you're supposed to use it, or when it would be useful. You're taking up a 4th level spell slot, but hey, it's there, so I guess you can try to make it work. And at 9th level, we have Greater Restoration and Ray's Telepathic Bond. Greater Restoration, of course, an insanely good and useful spell. Cure just about any status effect in the game. And the Telepathic Bond has its uses. Can be pretty useful for when you have to split up a bit. Want to keep that communication open if you don't have, let's say, a magic item that you can use for those purposes. And it can also be a very fun and sort of memey spell. So overall, the Unity domain spells aren't great, but don't worry, the rest of the features for the Unity domain make up for that. And starting off with those, at first level we have Emboldening Bond. As an action, you can choose 2 willing creatures you can see within 30 feet of you, this can include yourself, and create a magical bond between them. While either bonded creature is within 30 feet of the other, the creature can roll a d4 and add the number rolled to an attack roll, an ability check, or a saving throw it makes. Each creature can add the d4 no more than once per turn. The bond lasts for 1 hour, or until you use this feature again. You can use this feature once, and you regain the ability to do so when you finish a long rest. You can also expend a spell slot to use the feature again. So this is a very good ability. Essentially, it's sort of like a free bless on 2 people, as long as they're within 30 feet of each other. And you can only roll that d4 once per turn, but that's better than no d4s. So I think pairing up this bond on people who are going to be naturally closer together in combat would be very useful. Say the fighter and rogue are always in melee near each other, so bond the 2 of them up. Or perhaps the cleric and the sorcerer, who are always in the back. You can bond the 2 of them together, and you can get some free d4s on your attack rolls or saving throws. It does last 1 hour, so it can get you through a few combats, but if you do decide to take a short rest, you can gain the bond back if you expend any level of spell slot to use this feature again, which I really like. Again, we kind of talked about that with the Bard, which had a few features like that where you could expend a spell slot, a certain level of spell slot, to gain the feature back, gain a use of it back. And we see the Cleric has this sort of thing as well, and I really like it. I think it is a really good design choice. It helps make those once per long rest abilities, right? You don't just want to save them all for the end and just hold on to them to the end of the dungeon. You can actually use them and then use other resources like your spell slots to gain them back. And I think that's really good. I think it's better for the game and better for the class. So yeah, I really like it. I think Emboldening Bond is strong, but not too strong, certainly. I'm very glad that this sort of seems like a almost better version, if you remember the Noble Genie Patron Warlock from the last Unearthed Arcana. I had a lot of problems with its first level ability, which was very similar to this Emboldening Bond, where you could create a bond or a tether, a link between yourself, the Warlock, and someone else, and you would gain some benefits from it. But there were a lot of weird restrictions on it for not really a lot of benefits, which kind of made it clunky and hard to use. With this Emboldening Bond, I feel like it's very easy to use, and while it's not a lot of benefit by any means, it's still a very good benefit that can last for the entire combat or even a few combats, and you can get it back by just expending a spell slot. And it's not like the bond breaks if the creatures move more than 30 feet apart. You just don't get the benefit anymore until you move back within 30 feet, which is really good. So let's move on to the Channel Divinity Shared Burden. When a creature you can see within 30 feet of you takes damage, you can use your reaction to choose a number of other willing creatures you can see, up to a number of creatures equal to your Wisdom modifier. Distribute the damage taken between the original target and the chosen creatures. Each creature must take at least 1 damage. Apply any damage resistance or vulnerability of the creatures involved after you distribute the damage. This Channel Divinity is crazy. Crazy good, crazy powerful, and it's really cool. There are so many scenarios where this would just be so useful. It sort of reminds me of the Grave Cleric's ability to cancel out a critical hit, but like an upgraded version of that, where you can kind of cancel out the hit entirely by distributing the damage amongst all of your friends, instead of just that one person taking a big hit. So, for instance, a very optimal use of this would be if the sorcerer gets snuck up on and crit by an enemy rogue type, and they are within 30 feet of you, because of course they are. You two are bonded by the Emboldening Bond. You can use your reaction to distribute all of that damage, and let's say the sorcerer then only takes 1 point, and you distribute the rest of the, piercing damage to the barbarian, who then takes half. The barbarian doesn't care. The sorcerer is now in much better shape than they would have been. Or, let's say Fighter Bob gets crit, and it's a pretty big hit. Well, you can use your reaction and distribute that damage more equally, so that not only Fighter Bob gets demolished, and the entire group is better off for it. And if you're standing in the back unharmed, you're just a cleric, you could basically take an entire hit for someone, and it's really no problem. This is just a really cool Channel Divinity, as well as being very powerful. I would just love to use this. This Channel Divinity alone makes me want to play this Unity Cleric so bad. Just so when the DM hits someone really hard, I can say, yeah, I'm going to use my Channel Divinity. Let's spread that out a bit. Yeah, Mr. Sorcerer, you're not going to take 45 points of damage. You're going to take 5, and I'm going to take 10, and the Barbarian's going to take 20, and yeah, everyone's fine. That would just be really fun to do, and as you get higher level, you can do it multiple times with your Channel Divinity increased amount of uses, which would be even more fun. It's just a really exciting ability. But let's move on to Protective Bond at 6th level. The bond you forge between people shields them from harm. While either creature chosen for your Emboldening Bond feature is within 30 feet of the other, the creature can use its reaction to grant resistance to all damage to the other creature when that other creature takes damage. This resistance lasts until the end of the current turn. I'm just going to say it. I think this ability, Protective Bond, is probably too strong. It's really cool. It's really good. I like it a lot, but it is just too strong. Wow. This ability is crazy. 2 people who maybe normally wouldn't use their reactions for much of anything, can now use their reactions for each other to give each other resistance to all damage until the end of the current turn. If you can really time the initiative order right, you'll essentially just have 2 Bear Totem Barbarians, as long as they're within 30 feet of each other. Let's say Fighter Bob and Rogue McGee are bonded, and they're within 30 feet of each other, and Fighter Bob is fighting a Minotaur, and Rogue McGee is fighting, the enemy spellcaster. On the Minotaur's turn, Rogue McGee can use his reaction to give Fighter Bob resistance to all damage, and it lasts for that entire turn. So Fighter Bob takes half damage from all the Minotaur's attacks. On the enemy spellcaster's turn, Fighter Bob can use his reaction to give Rogue McGee resistance to all damage. So the enemy spellcaster does only half damage to Rogue McGee. And if multiple enemies go on a single, turn. Let's say all of the bandit archers go on one turn. Well, Rogue McGee is going to give Fighter Bob resistance to all damage with just his reaction. And now if Fighter Bob gets shot by all of the bandit archers, which he's likely to do because he's up there and just out in the open, and god damn it, Bob, well, Bob's going to take half damage from all of them, so it doesn't matter. And Bob can do the same thing for Rogue McGee when the bandit captain takes his turn and is dueling Rogue McGee, as long as they are within 30 feet of each other. And as long as they are within 30 feet of each other, they still get to add d4s to a roll once per turn as well. This is just crazy powerful. I think it might be too strong unless I'm misunderstanding something, but I can see two people gaming this really hard. And this does also make you want to use the bond on probably more melee people, as they're probably going to be taking more damage. Or alternatively, you can use it on the ranged people like the Cleric and the Sorcerer, so that when they do get hit, it's going to be for less, and they can actually maybe take a hit or two. And besides just using their reaction and once per turn, there is no limit to how many times they can do this. I think this might need a limit on it to not just be completely ridiculous. Maybe like each bonded creature can do this a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier, something like that. I think this definitely needs a limit because you could just totally abuse this otherwise and just take half damage all the time from everything. I guess a decent counter to this is the legendary actions, because you can't predict when the legendary actions are going to happen. It's kind of hard to decide, do I want to use my reaction now when they make a legendary action attack, or do I want to wait for their turn for them to do something, things like that. There's also just the fact of, if the boss takes its turn, then both Fighter Bob and Rogue McGee can use both of their reactions at the same time to give both of them resistance to damage, all damage, on the boss's turn only, so that if the boss throws a fireball or something at them, they just don't take any damage. Well, not any damage. They both take half. The rogue might take less because of evasion, but, might take none. Doesn't matter. We're getting too specific with this. End of story. Protective Bond, really, 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 really strong. Probably needs to be toned down a bit or limited in some way. Moving on. Potent spellcasting at 8th level. You can add your wisdom modifier to the damage you deal with any cleric cantrip. This is just the basic thing that all spellcaster clerics get. The more martial clerics get Divine Strike, as it says in the rule tip right there just below it. And yeah, this is just a basic cleric feature. Nothing out of the ordinary here. It's fine. Let's move on to something a bit more exciting with the 17th level feature, Enduring Unity. Creatures affected by your Emboldening Bond feature gain its benefits, as well as those of your Protective Bond feature, while they are on the same plane of existence as each other. So at 17th level, the 30-foot range requirement is just totally removed. They can be however far apart they want to be. Doesn't matter, as long as they're on the same plane. Great. Additionally, when a creature chosen for your Emboldening Bond is reduced to 0 hit points, their bonded partner gains the following benefits for 1 minute, or until the creature regains at least 1 hit point. So notice there, before we get into what benefits they gain, that there is no other limit on this feature besides just them going to 0 hit points and not being at 1 hit point, or regaining at least 1 hit point. So if someone is in consciousness ping pong, which we like to call it when you're up, you get healed, oh, you're down. You get healed, you're up, and you're down. You get healed, you're up, you're down. Things like that. This can happen every single time that happens. Every single time your bonded partner goes down, you gain the following benefits. The creature has advantage on attack rolls, ability checks, and saving throws. All of them. Amazing. Holy crap. Imagine giving the fighter advantage on all attack rolls. Oh man, that's scary. The creature has resistance to all damage. Okay, even scarier. Now he's attacking 4 times a turn at advantage, and I can't kill him. And as an action, the creature can touch their bonded partner to expend and roll any number of hit dice. Their bonded partner regains a number of hit points equal to the total rolled. At level 17, you're probably not going to be using hit dice at all, so this gives you another way to use hit dice and gives you a way to heal your partner so the cleric doesn't have to. But you're still probably going to make the cleric do it, because what else are they fucking doing? So holy crap, once again, this feature is crazy, and probably needs to be toned down a bit or limited in some way, because there is absolutely no limit. If one partner goes down, the other partner just goes into a ballistic rage, has advantage on everything, has resistance to all damage, and can suddenly heal. Keep Fighter Bob unconscious. I want Rogue McGee to kill everything. But you don't have to keep Fighter Bob unconscious. If Fighter Bob is in consciousness ping pong, as long as he's down on the rogue's turn, then the rogue gets all these benefits. And as long as Bob is up on his turn, then he can still, do normal things. normal fighter bob things. So again, I think this needs to be limited in some way. If it was like the bonded partner can gain the following benefits for 1 minute a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier, something like that, or maybe once per long rest, or you expend a spell slot to gain the feature back, something like that. Just some sort of limiting factor. It doesn't have to be that limiting, just limiting in some way so you can't just abuse this feature and just get crazy with it like you could with Protective Bond, because otherwise this feature is just crazy good. And that about sums it up for the Unity Domain Cleric. Overall, probably a little too powerful, but I really do like what it's got going on here. The expanded spells are okay. I love the Channel Divinity, and I also love how it gets this first level Emboldening Bond feature and then progressively builds upon it with other features that you get at later levels. So starting off, Emboldening Bond, it's okay. It's fine, but once you get Protective Bonds, go, this is really good. And then you get Enduring Unity, and this is crazy, right? I love it when classes sort of build upon their sort of standard feature like that. And yeah, I really like the design of this Unity Cleric. I think Protective Bond and Enduring Unity might need to be limited in some way. They are probably a bit too strong, just left unchecked. But other than that, I'm a big fan of this subclass and can't wait to see the official version. But what do you think about the Unity Cleric? Did I miss something? Am I right? Am I wrong? Is it good? Bad? What do you think? Let me know. Make sure to leave a like if you would like to, or subscribe if you would really like to, because tomorrow we will be going over the Clockwork Soul Sorcerer. Be sure to tune in for that one. And until next time, see ya.